Annyeong! It's K-Wave with Hongbin on Money FM 89.3. Welcome to K-Wave. I'm Hongbin Jeong, your South Korean living right here in Singapore, bringing you all you have to know about the Korean wave, better known as the Hallyu fever. Now, it's K-Influencer today, and our influencer for today is someone whose passion for food goes beyond just eating. Sarah Ahn, who is a culinary storyteller whose kitchen serves as a gateway to her family's cherished memories and traditions. Now, for Sarah and her loved ones, each recipe is a precious link to their family tree, and every plated dish tells a unique chapter of their personal narrative. So, how did Sarah's culinary journey begin, and what made her continue this legacy of creating her family's favorite dishes? Well, joining us today to share her story is Sarah Ahn, who's a creator of Ahnest Kitchen and works professionally at America's Test Kitchen. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Honest Kitchen. Hi.
Hi. Okay, Sarah, why don't you help us introduce yourself?
So I'm Sarah. I'm the creator behind Honest Kitchen, and I share my family life and everything related to Korean culture, specifically food, with people on TikTok and Instagram and the internet.
Wow. Okay. So, how did the idea of Honest Kitchen come about?
Yeah, so it started when I was very young in my 20s, and I wanted
Mhm.
to document my mom's recipes because what I was finding online just didn't really reflect the recipes that my
Mhm.
mom makes. And so I just decided to archive all her recipes, and my notebook where I was archiving all the recipes was just getting messy. And so
Mhm.
I made a website to just organize my recipes there. And I just thought, if I'm just going to be posting this on a website, might as well share it with the world. And so
Mm.
I started with my blog and people picked up on the recipes, and then I posted on social media with the stories behind those recipes, and it just goes on from there.
Oh, wow. Is there, I know it is a play on words, Honest Kitchen, with your last name. It kind of sounds like Honest Kitchen. Am I picking that up right?
Yeah,
Or.
it is. And how that came about is because, yes, my last name is On. My name's Sarah Sujin On. But I've been known to be very honest and frank. And so that personality, which is a huge part of who I am, has been shown throughout Honest Kitchen and why it's named the Honest Kitchen.
Oh, that's lovely. So, what's inspired you to start sharing your family's recipes with the world? You did mention that it started with a website.
Yeah, so it did start as a website, but what really inspired me was I realized as a Korean American, to my fault, I'm not fluent in Korean, and it's something that I'm working on, and that's something I can always work on with my parents or not. But I think that especially as a Korean American, if I don't learn the recipes now when my parents aren't around, then how will I ever eat the foods that I grew up with again? I'm not fluent in Korean, so learning those recipes that I find very authentic that are often found on Korean websites like Naver, I wouldn't be able to read it. So for me, I think it's just so important as a Korean American, again, to preserve those recipes and traditions the best that I could when my parents are around. And that's when I really took Honest Kitchen much more seriously.
I see. I mean, I saw that each recipe holds dear to you as it is your family's recipe. Can you share why you decided to share your family's recipes on the internet instead of just keeping it to yourself?
Yeah, I think especially when I started to share those recipes, K-pop and K-culture wasn't at its peak. And so for
Mhm.
me, I just wanted to popularize Korean food before it was popular and just try my hand at it. And so
Mhm.
I wanted just people to see our culture. I wanted people to taste our culture, and I just want to share the beauty of our culture with others online. And I made my website especially during the COVID era where I really had a lot of
Mhm.
time, and so when people were bored and cooking, that was my time to show it to people.
Your time to shine. I mean, I would
Yeah.
see videos of your mom making meals with you. Could you tell us more about your collaboration with your mom in recording and documenting the recipes for Honest Kitchen?
Yeah, so kind of the ideas and the framework of how our videos are made is my mom is a natural cook. She used to own a
Mhm.
restaurant, and that was our source of our
Oh.
income for almost a decade. So she's just a natural cook that's always in the kitchen. And I
Mhm.
just record her as she is. Like she's just cooking. She doesn't know the camera's on. Sometimes she doesn't. with her consent, she lets me film her whenever. And from there, I will share any stories that I have associated with it, any feelings or emotions that I have with that food, and just edit that together and show it to people while showcasing Korean food.
Okay, so speaking of, having a story behind some of the food, your most viral clip is the Korean cafe sandwich, but there seems to be a deeper story behind it. Could you share what the story is behind the sandwich?
Yeah, so the story is, in that video, I talk about, we are making a sandwich in that video, and it's a very beautiful, full sandwich. But the story is I had actually brought kimbap to school. This was when I
Mhm.
was in third or fifth grade. I can't recall. And I went to school with the packed kimbap that my mom made early in the morning with so much pride and excitement to show others. And I went to a
Yeah.
school that was predominantly white. And the moment I took it out, the whole table that I was sitting with, they were disgusted by it, and someone had shouted that like, "Ew, what are you eating? That looks so disgusting." Um,
Mhm.
and it was just a moment of shock, and I felt shame because as a kid, that
Mhm.
was the first time I ever um, experienced blatant discrimination. And so I went home that night and I asked my mom to make me just a sandwich on white bread. And that's what she
Yeah.
did exactly. And that's what that video was talking about. Um,
Mm.
so, yeah, it was kind of during a time where I was discovering discrimination, my identity as a little third or sixth grader. And from there, a lot has changed, but I think it's an experience that a lot of immigrant families, kids deal with, unfortunately, back then.
I think yeah, and I think I can vouch for that as an international student myself.
Mhm.
Um, and I was in an American school which was predominantly white as well. I would, it's tradition if when we go on field trips from a Korean family, it's kimbap. We
Right.
bring kimbap to a field trip. And I also remember just begging my mom, can you just make me a normal peanut butter and jelly
Mhm.
sandwich? So I can fit in with the rest of the gang.
Exactly.
So I think a lot of Korean families, I think Korean kids, when they were little, if they grew up into an international environment, I think that was the one thing that we can actually relate on. But I've also grown to love kimbap, and
Same.
I hate myself for like
Mhm.
asking my mom to pack me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich
I
because
know.
it's so good, and I think when I grew older and people got a bit more, aware of the different culinary styles and dishes, they
Mhm.
decided to take my kimbap from me. So,
Yeah, exactly.
like, "You guys back then said it was smelly and
Yeah.
said 'ew,' and now you're taking it from me." But yeah, it is a story that I think a lot of people can relate. But I also wanna know, what is your first recipe that you learned that inspired you to love cooking?
Oh, the first recipe, I think you know this one because it's the recipe that we all grew up with, but it's karambap. Which is egg rice, and I think that's
Yep.
just by default, everyone first learns to fry an egg, whether you're Korean, American, whatever. Um, but then I grew up watching my mom make kimbap all the time, where she,
Mhm,
mixes it with soy sauce and sesame oil, and you eat it with kimchi. That's the first
mhm.
meal I learned how to make, and I still love it till this day. And ever since then, I've loved cooking and just wanted to learn from there.
Okay, okay. Then what is the most difficult recipe you've made?
This one is ironic because we went viral for this one, but it's actually kimbap, and I'm not good at making kimbap. I'm currently on a mission to learn all my mom's recipes right now.
Mhm,
Been very busy with that, and
mhm,
I've been able to do every recipe from miyeokguk to katsu to, uh, red bean soup,
mhm.
whatever you want, but the one thing I cannot do is kimbap. I cannot roll it tightly like my mom does. But I think when I'm in
I
my
don't
40s, I will be able to do it.
I don't think any of us can. It's like a
No.
magic our mothers have
Yeah.
to, tightly pack those kimbap. But what makes home-cooked Korean family recipe dishes different from the usual Korean dishes we eat at restaurants?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the difference is you can taste the 엄마's love in it and the labor of
Yeah.
love that goes into it. And I just feel like at restaurants, I mean, if I had to be completely honest, I don't eat out at Korean restaurants, and when my friends wanna go
Mm.
eat Korean, I'm just like, it's not going to be good because like, I have all this Korean food at home, and the reason why I think home cooked foods taste so much different than the Korean foods you get at restaurants is because it has that
Mhm.
almost touch of love in it, and I think
Yeah.
in Korean cuisine, Korean food has historically always been led by women, and so
Mhm.
it's the ommas that make it so amazing, and it's that love that they add into it that you just can't find elsewhere. Like, you're not going to find that good kimchi jjigae, which is kimchi stew, at a restaurant that's as good as your mom's.
Exactly. I think, I'm living away from my mom at the
Yeah.
moment, and the dish that or the, I guess, restaurant or I don't know to call it, but it's 엄마 밥 that I miss the most. You
Mm,
know, your mom's
sure.
cooking is the one that you miss the most out of, I can travel all the way to Korea to eat all the good food, but the first dish that I will eat whenever I visit Korea is my mom's cooking.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing that beats it.
Nothing that beats it. But how do you think Korean dishes evolved throughout the years? I mean, there's a lot of fusion going on. Do you try to make those recipes as well, or do you stick to your mom's traditional way of cooking?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fusions going on. Like when I go to my local Korean market, there's tteokbokki and gnocchi, which is Italian mix.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
just a lot of fusions with Korean and Mexican food,
Mhm,
and trends going on where people are, just making all these types of new foods. But I personally prefer the traditional ones just because they have
mhm,
so much history behind it. And I think, again, like how I mentioned earlier, if we don't learn those traditions now, the ones that our grandmas passed down to our moms and the ones that our moms are
mhm.
currently making, when are we going to learn how to make it, you know?
Right.
Like if we
Yeah.
don't learn how to make our family's meal cook recipe, then how are we going to celebrate when someone becomes pregnant and gives birth or
Yeah.
when someone's birthday comes around? So those traditional recipes I think hold more significance for me and I prioritize those. But I'm very open to trying fusion ones and making those too.
What about other cuisines? Are you venturing out to other cuisines as well?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's so much beauty in other cuisines. And I love this question because I think right now Korean culture is trending and I love
Mhm,
that. And I think it opens doors for other cultures to be seen because people will see more people of color in the media. And I really hope that people see beyond Korean culture because there's so much beautiful cultures around, whether it's Singapore culture or Thai food or Middle Eastern food, whatever it may be. Like there's so much more cultures to explore. Right now,
mhm.
I'm in love with Middle Eastern food. I'm currently trying all these different kinds of Egyptian foods and I've been quite obsessed.
Oh.
And I think there's so much beauty in it and there's so much cultural similarity behind it. And I love it.
Perhaps you could try a Egyptian Korean fusion dish.
Yeah, I think so, but I've noticed that Middle Eastern spices and Korean spices are very opposite of each other.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, that's one thing I've noticed is that when Egyptians try Korean food, it's just like, I don't know if they're gonna like it or not, and in the same way, when
Mhm.
Koreans try Egyptian food, I don't know if they'll like it or not because it's very opposite.
I see, I see. Well, then what advice would you give to others who are interested in, preserving their family recipes? What's the first thing they should know? I mean, you've been doing this for years.
Yeah. I think what's the advice that I would give is be intentional and make the time to learn
Mhm,
your family's recipes because I always hear from my parents that they miss X, Y, and Z from their parents and they wish just to have a bite of it and how
mhm.
much regret they have not learning it. And I think we have to deliberately make the time to learn those recipes, sit down with our parents, ask them to use measuring spoons because as Koreans don't do that. As Korean parents, they don't do that and
Mhm.
to tell us like what is the exact measurements, show me how to make it.
Mhm.
And I think that's just so important for us to do. But it has to be very purposeful and meaningful and intentional.
I think the trouble I had was the exact measurements. I would
Yeah, I
ask my
know.
mom how to cook a certain dish, and she's like, "Oh, put some sugar, put some salt." I'm like, "How
Yeah,
much? Like, exactly how much sugar?" She's like, "Just eye it. You'll
yeah,
know." I'm like, "I don't know." So
exactly,
I think, yeah, we need to pressure them to ask about the exact measurements. But before
exactly.
we let you go here, Sarah, is there anything we can look forward to from Honest Kitchen? Any new recipes?
For sure, recipes will always be coming out. I'm currently working on some big projects that I can't share yet
Mm.
because we haven't
No.
gone public with it, but just
Mhm.
catch me around, and, I hope that the work that I do is loved by many and a lot of people can relate to it and, can enjoy the foods that I create.
I see. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. If you want to check Sarah out, you may visit her TikTok and Instagram at Honest Kitchen. That's Ahnest Kitchen. I'm Hongbin Jeong, and this has been K Influencers on K Wave right here on Money FM 89.3.
Money FM 89.3.